my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and WTF. Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men. Real, I'm not making it up. When normal people read that San Francisco has basically legalized shoplifting, they think Democrats have gone nuts. They think, you know, that Ted Cruz guy seems like a real stiff. But at least he believes in the concept of shopping with money.
Maher is back, and once again, he is ripping into the left with absolutely no filter. This time, he exposed how Democrats kept pushing their own supporters away until many of those voters finally gave up and switched sides completely. His takedown was not just brutal, it was the kind of truth that lingers long after the conversation ends. If you are tired of fake political niceties and watered-down debates, and you want bold commentary that hits hard and says what others are scared to say, then you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe now, because what is coming next only gets more intense.
Too early to strategize. Democrats have been having a lot of donor retreats lately where liberal strategists hold ideathons, where they try to figure out why they keep losing elections. You know, apart from using words like ideathon. And now one idea that's getting a lot of attention is the Dems need to find their Joe Rogan, a liberal Joe Rogan, because that's why Kamala lost. Republicans have a podcast.
Get ready for this, because the left genuinely believes voices like Joe Rogan are the reason they keep losing people, and once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. Over the last 2 years, a wave of left-leaning podcasts suddenly appeared, all trying to recreate Rogan's long-form, laid-back, just asking questions style. From a distance, it looks like evolution. Up close, it feels like imitation with no authenticity behind it. They copied the format but completely missed the reason people connected with it in the first place. Audiences did not flock to Rogan because of the studio setup or the casual conversations. They showed up for the unpredictability, the honesty, and the fact that he was willing to challenge his own side without hesitation. That kind of energy cannot be scripted, rehearsed, or manufactured by a media strategy team. And now Bill Maher is stepping in to tear apart this entire copycat strategy, exposing why it is not just failing, but why it was doomed from the start.
I think his mind is completely inflexible. His neck, yes. But not his mind. And he's expressed unease with some things Trump is doing, as has a certain disgruntled former employee named Elon Musk, who, like Joe, is another guy who 5 years ago was thought of as a liberal, but got driven into the other camp by bad attitudes and bad ideas, a reversal I completely understand, although I would never emulate. I also see the woke mind virus. I just don't jump from frying pans into fire.
Right here, Bill Maher lays everything out in brutal detail. He argues that the left ended up pushing figures like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk completely out of the Democratic camp, and according to him, the turning point was the rise of woke ideology. Maher's argument is direct and unapologetic. A small but extremely loud group began forcing ideas and policies onto the public that many ordinary Americans simply did not agree with, and questioning those ideas quickly became unacceptable. The moment someone challenged the narrative, they risked being attacked online, publicly shamed, or completely shut down. Maher says that is not open discussion, it is intimidation disguised as activism. He points to Seth Moulton as an example, arguing that even a liberal Democrat faced backlash from his own side after speaking out on controversial issues like transgender athletes in women's sports. Maher's larger point lands hard. The second a political movement stops tolerating disagreement, it starts driving away its own supporters. And in his view, that fracture is exactly what reshaped the political landscape in America.
But I watched the evolution of both these guys. This didn't happen overnight. In 2022, before he owned Twitter, Elon tweeted this chart depicting how he felt about the liberal side having shifted so much that it left a basically liberal centrist like him now labeled a conservative. I related. I related to the kind of mean girl shit you get from the cool kids in Wokeville when you're perceived that way. They tried real hard to cancel Rogan a few years ago. And when Elon hosted Saturday Night Live in 2021, well before he was a Trumper, some of the cast members gave him the cold shoulder for the sin of being rich.
Now Bill Maher turns the spotlight onto Joe Rogan and Elon Musk to explain how America became more divided than ever. Maher argues that a decade ago, people from completely different political sides could sit together, argue for hours, and still walk away respecting each other. Politics was intense, but it was not treated like a personal war. The mindset back then was simple: country first, politics second. But according to Maher, that balance started collapsing when parts of the left moved toward more extreme positions and stopped tolerating disagreement. He says the problem was no longer just arguing with conservatives, it became refusing to even engage with them at all. The moment someone was labeled right-leaning, the conversation ended before it even began. Maher believes that shift poisoned the culture itself. Political disagreement stopped being about ideas and started becoming a reason to cut people off entirely. Friendships cracked, trust disappeared, and political identity became a wall separating Americans from each other. And now, in Maher's view, the divide is so deep that many people no longer see the other side as opponents to debate, but as enemies to fear, which only keeps pushing the country further apart.
Not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and WTF. Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men. Real. I'm not making it up.
Bill Maher then lays out what he believes were some of the most dangerous ideas pushed by the modern left. He questions slogans like cancel rent, asking who would actually keep society running if nobody pays the bills, and he criticizes the defund the police movement for offering outrage without a real plan to keep communities safe. Maher also points to the growing trend of attacking historical figures like Abraham Lincoln, arguing that history was being reduced to viral outrage instead of serious discussion. In his view, the biggest problem was that these ideas were no longer staying on the fringe, but slowly entering mainstream politics and media. And Maher warns that if this direction had continued unchecked during a major election cycle with Kamala Harris leading the ticket, the political and cultural damage could have been far worse.
Should be a good issue for Democrats. It's certainly one they're associated with. And I think the average voter would agree that banks and chemical plants and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for that. But Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag.
Another point Bill Maher pushes hard is overregulation and how, in his view, the left buried everyday Americans under endless rules and restrictions. He argues that layer after layer of regulations turn normal life into a frustrating maze of permits, approvals, and paperwork, all justified with the promise of keeping people safe. But according to Maher, what people actually experienced was constant delay and unnecessary hassle. He points to places like California, where even simple projects like replacing a garage door or building a small shed can involve permits, inspections, and weeks of waiting. Small business owners, he says, face it even worse, with licensing requirements, compliance fees, and government red tape slowing everything down before they can even open their doors. Maher's argument is simple but sharp. When regulation goes too far, It stops helping ordinary people and starts trapping them inside a system so complicated that even basic tasks feel impossible.
Normal people read that San Francisco has basically legalized shoplifting. They think Democrats have gone nuts. They think, that Ted Cruz guy seems like a real stiff. But at least he believes in the concept of shopping with money.
Beyond the regulation debate, Bill Maher argues that the left also became too soft on crime, and he says the consequences showed up quickly. In his view, certain policies focused more on explaining criminal behavior than enforcing accountability, which blurred the line between justice and leniency. He points to places like California, where changes to theft laws and enforcement policies created a public perception that shoplifting and low-level crime were no longer taken seriously. Whether every criticism was fully accurate or not, Maher argues that the bigger issue was the collapse of public confidence. Businesses suffered losses, neighborhoods felt less secure, and many people started believing the system was no longer protecting ordinary citizens. Maher's warning is blunt. Once laws begin to feel optional, trust in order and stability starts breaking down. And if that mindset spreads too far, he believes the people who suffer most are everyday citizens left dealing with the fallout.
Trump says that woke is officially dead, capitals. You got to cloud some of this shit. You just officially dead at Brown. After that, their settlement with the administration. What do you make of the president's war on the academy? I don't know what the academy. I think he means.
Higher education.
I think the person means academia.
Academia. Well, the
this
academy.
person should go to an academy. War on the academy. Yes, on academia. I'm not totally against it.
Yeah.
Academia needed a hot poker.
Bill Maher argues that what he calls the woke virus did not stop at politics but spread deeply into universities and college campuses across America. In his view, schools that were once built around open debate, critical thinking, and challenging ideas slowly became places where certain viewpoints were treated as untouchable while opposing opinions were pushed aside. Maher says many universities stopped questioning cultural trends and instead embraced them without resistance, creating environments where disagreement could quickly lead to backlash or silence. He also points to the rise of personalized pronouns and identity-based language on campuses, arguing that it reflected a much larger cultural shift happening underneath the surface. For Maher, the real danger is not about language alone, but about institutions choosing conformity over intellectual debate. He warns that once universities stop encouraging people to challenge ideas freely, they risk turning from places of discovery into echo chambers built around a single accepted worldview.
What about the younger people in your party, though? How are you going to get them to understand, no matter how many times people like Jamie and I say to them, the world is a complicated place, and it's not just about oppressor and oppressed. They have a thought in their head that white people did some very bad things, and white people did some very bad things. And they're all but so did everybody else in the world. But they don't know that. They just see the world through this one prism. And until they do, I don't think you're going to get them off this issue. And I don't think the Democratic Party is going to be able to go forward until they make a decision. Whose side are you on here? Are you on the side of Western civilization and Western values, or are you on the side of the terrorists? Are you with those kids? Because, Mandami, he's the perfect candidate for them.
Yep.
That's what they think is.
Bill Maher argues that the same woke culture he criticizes also began shaping how many students view major global conflicts, especially on college campuses. He points to protests and demonstrations that critics claimed appeared overly sympathetic toward groups like Hamas, leaving many older Americans shocked by how dramatically the narrative seemed to shift. Maher says some activists began framing complex conflicts in ways that blurred the line between victims, aggressors, and political causes, often reducing serious issues into emotionally charged slogans. In his view, this did not happen by accident, but grew out of years of campuses promoting one dominant ideological perspective while discouraging open disagreement or deeper debate. Maher argues that when students are repeatedly exposed to only one interpretation of complicated issues, it can shape how they process events and react emotionally to world politics. Critics may see these demonstrations as free expression, But Maher believes they reveal something more troubling, an education culture that risks replacing independent thinking with ideological conformity and emotional groupthink.
Our universities have been out of control for a long time. They became indoctrination factories. They forgot there's absolutely no diversity of thought.
Well, and they're continuing to racially discriminate against the law,
and
as
that
the Supreme Court ruled 2 years ago.
I mean, there's a lot of inefficiencies. The overhead in higher education, why it's so much more expensive than when I went. The overhead is very high, but I also want to be really clear that Donald Trump is not interested in making them more efficient or getting rid of overhead or dealing with affordability. This is his woke culture war. This is his culture war against things that he doesn't believe in and want to see, and it's actually extending to our service academies.
Well,
West
you don't
Point,
have to
Air
be
Force
Donald
Academy.
Trump to think that there's been something rotten on campuses for quite a long time.
In the end, Bill Maher's argument comes down to one core idea. The moment ideology replaces common sense, the damage spreads everywhere through politics, culture, education, and everyday life. From overregulation and crime policies to campus activism and media narratives, he paints a picture of a country that lost its balance once disagreement stopped being tolerated. What was once a political system built on debate and shared national values now feels deeply divided, with both sides drifting further apart and seeing each other less as opponents and more as enemies. Whether people agree with Maher or not, his warning stays the same. When a society stops questioning itself honestly, it risks losing the foundation that held it together in the first place. And with that, we are wrapping up today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.